is not just calories. Food is information. It talks to your DNA and tells it what to do. The most potent force to change your environment, to change your health, and to change your entire world lies in your fork. Those are the words of Mark Amen. My name is Fashion Uyitolani, your T-Fash baby girl from the Savage line. This is the Nutrition Gist segment of our next show. Global statistics has to show that there is high percentage or more occurrence of the COVID-19, infections and death rates in developed countries than in underdeveloped countries. Not only that, there's also a record in developing countries we have more incidences of this virus, more pronounced among the wealthy, the rich, than among the poor personnels in the society. We have 4 more points, or 5, or 6 to go, 10 points all the way. And while the rich have more COVID-19 incidences than the poor and undernourished. Fresh food intakes. Research from Harvard University has to say too that people who take more of plant-based food, they're able to empower the immune system with the untouched and unadulterated vitamins and minerals that is abundant in those foods. The average rich person do not purchase their foods where the poor people or the average earner purchases their own food. The average earner or the poor or undernourished most likely and most often purchase their foods from the open markets. In fact, they own personal farms. Maybe a subsistence farmer, or he has a friend, a fellow market woman who is also a subsistence farmer. So they get their fresh vegetables, they get their fish, they get their crayfishes, they get their cassava, name it, fresh from the farm. They are not farms that you can use a whole lot of expensive fertilizers for. So the minerals are untouched. The nutrients are usually intact in those foods. The foods may not be attractive, the tomatoes, the peppers may not be so big, but they are nutrient dense. Well, my rich guy goes to the fancy malls to purchase his own foods. He buys his peppers, he buys his tomatoes from there, and he can fall risk of what? Plastic foods to genetic modified foods. Foods that are made with excessive fertilizers, because nothing can stand in the place of an untouched soil. An unhampered ecosystem. Now the poor gets his own fresh foods this way. He doesn't go to fancy malls. Do I say fancy malls are wrong? No, they are not wrong. But I would advise that you do more of your raw grocery purchases from the large local farms. There is a whole lot of controversies about GMO foods because research has linked genetic modified foods with high rate of metabolic syndrome and high rate of coronary heart problems. More sugary and fizzy, drinks, foods and beverage intakes. Research reveals that excessive added sugars intake negatively affects the immune system. The reason is this: sugars are pro-inflammatory agents. Pro-inflammatory in the sense that when blood sugars are elevated for extended period of time, it usually leads the blood into an inflammatory state. Excessive sugar intake, it puts the blood in an inflammatory state. And this inflammatory state not only negatively affects the blood vessels, especially in people that are diabetic, it not only negatively affects the sugar level, but it also leads to cellular dysfunction. It triggers more inflammations and it changes the innate and the adaptive immune system. Excessive added sugar intakes has the ability to change the innate innate and the adaptive immune system. In fact, of all food nutrients, sugar has the highest ability to cause more inflammations in the body than any other food. Now, the rich has access to this sugary diets, fizzy drinks, alcohol, carbonated drinks, more than the poor. I mean, they can take it on a daily basis. And what happens is the poor cannot afford it, and hence his body cells is more intact and his immunity is more strong. Less intakes of herbs and spices. Scientific evidence reveals that herbs like black seeds, like garlics, like honey, like turmeric, like ginger are powerful antioxidants that also have anti-inflammatory, anti-thrombotic, antibacterial and antiviral functions. In fact, it is known that honey activates the immune system's response against infections and cell proliferation. And black seeds has been known to have antiviral and anti-inflammatory activities against a wide range of infections, especially asthma and upper respiratory tract infections, which happen to be a complication comes out of COVID-19. Not until now, I guess, a large part of society, especially the wealthy, the aristocrats, they have this negative feeling towards herbs and spices, like garlics, for instance, because they believe, it has this odd smell and it doesn't really look so lovely and beautiful in its usage. But the poor has no choice but to use these herbs and spices because they are readily available in the open markets, they are cheap, and they're easy to purchase than the average sophisticated canned spices and whatever you may have. And so the poor goes for his garlics, he goes for his black seeds, he goes for his ginger, his turmeric, which are cheap and easy to purchase. But the rich goes for their own canned condiments that do not have the same antiviral and antibacterial properties as these local herbs and spices. Research has shown that these herbs and spices, they are powerful components of the interference killer T cells in the immune system. Fatty dietary intakes. Clinical evidence shows that the more fatty diet we consume, the lesser the effectiveness of our immune system. And this is chiefly because of the immunomodulators, the arginine and the glutamine. These two partners, they are chemical agents that do regulatory adjustments of the immune system. And they are basically protein in nature. The more you fry your proteins, your meat, your fish, the more you add fats or ice cream to your nuts, the more you reduce the potency of that protein. And when you reduce the potency, you invariably allow the immunomodulators of arginine and glutamine, which are powerful chemical agents that do regulatory work on the immune system. You reduce their effectiveness. The rich, he has more money at his disposal. He can afford some luxury diets, like daily intakes of omelets, of fried eggs, and daily intakes of creams and everything fatty. While the poor may not be able to afford daily intakes of fried foods, of toppings, of creams, and so he does not endanger his immune system. The danger of this luxurious diet for the rich is not just obesity or overweight or coronary heart problems, but the tendency for a daily decline or weakening of the protein immune system components by the high-fat diet. Scientific data has shown that unsaturated fat that includes oily fishes of salmon, of mackerel, that includes extra virgin cooking olive oil, that includes canola oil, that means they increase antibody production in the body. Whereas the saturated fats like mayonnaise, like butter, like fried foods, they reduce or affect the cellular response of the immune system. The more fatty diets the rich takes, the lesser is the immune system's ability compared with the poor. less exposure to sunshine vitamin D. You know, research has proven that the more optimal levels of serum vitamin D, the less incidences of asthma, of common colds, and upper respiratory tract infection. In fact, there is a direct link that the people that have more incidences of upper respiratory tract infection have less serum blood levels of vitamin D. One of the complications that comes with COVID-19 is inability to breathe or upper respiratory tract infection and a wide frame of inflammation. The average wealthy, overnourished, they have less exposure to sunlight vitamin D than the poor or the average earner. You see, the average wealthy person stays more in cool temperatures. I mean, especially the wealthy in the tropics. He moves from his air-conditioned tight house to his air-conditioned tight car, chauffeured to his air-conditioned tight office, enters the AC tight boardroom, and then back again at the end of the day at dusk to his air-conditioned car, chauffeured back home to his air-conditioned house. No exposure to sunlight, no stimulation of vitamin D in his skin cells. Whereas the poor man does not have too much money, has to hustle out there in the sun. He's out very early in the morning, out in the streets, in the market, at the stores, working, sweating under the sunlight. But the fortunate thing for the poor person is that at the end of the day, he has more vitamin D stimulated in his body than the wealthy. So with this margin, the poor has more immunity built up against COVID-19, yes, because of his vitamin D levels. While the rich, because he stays more in cool temperatures, he has less exposure to it. Because this coronavirus is known to be a fatty coated strain that cannot withstand excessive heat. And that is all we'll be having on the show today. Till we meet again to proceed on our gist. You go, eat to live, and don't live to eat. Bye for now.